So, welcome. Welcome. So, this is an exploration of nothing. Nothing being non-duality, non-duality being nothing. So, somethings seems to be two. A something is usually how an object is perceived as. So an object being something, subject being a someone knowing something, yeah? So not to make this too abstract, but someone and something, subject, object, it's quite simple actually, it equals two. And what is being explored is not two, it's not one, it's not anything at all. There's just nothing. There is only nothing. Nothing is what's appearing to happen. What's appearing to happen is nothing at all. And nothing is this is everything. So everything that is appearing, everything that is whatever it is, it's nothing at all. There's no substance, in other words, there's no substantiality, there's no solidity. So it's nothing and everything. Everything is nothing at all. And being nothing, somehow or other, it's boundless. It's totally being nothing and everything, paradoxically, timelessly, it's limitless. There's no boundaries to be found. There's no limitations to be found. There's not even any conditions really, although conditionality is an appearance, but it's suggested that this is totally unconditionally free, vibrantly so. It's vibrantly alive and free. And being limitless and free, it can do anything, apparently. It can appear in any which way. And so being limitless, boundless, free, and unlimited, unconditional, it can appear to be limited, bounded, separate, contracted. It can appear in any which way. So appearing as separation, appearing as contraction, it is just simply what's appearing. Nothing right or wrong with that. I mean, a couple of questions were asked the other day on Walter's situation. Walter and Alexis having a chat, and people having a chat, and what was suggested, for some reason, what was being shared was interpreted as suggesting that seeking is wrong, and it is a misinterpretation that comes around from time to time, that seeking is wrong. But what is actually exposed is that there's no right or wrong. Radically so, there is actually no right or wrong. So it's not saying that seeking is wrong, it's actually saying that seeking is the confirmation that something is wrong, which is quite a crucial difference. So when there's this seeking energy happening for an individual, that is the confirmation that something's wrong and it can be made right. But outside, as though there was an outside, which there isn't, but apparently outside of the story, there's nothing right or wrong with anything. Right or wrong only seems to appear in this story of me and my life, with volition and free will, choice, control, going this way or that way, trying to navigate life, trying to, control or oversee the outcomes of life, the content of experience. So in this separation experience, an individual, the appearance and the sense of individuality tends to be felt as dissatisfying, and out of that energy appears seeking. It's not someone seeking, it's the appearance of seeking. And the seeking is basically saying that something doesn't feel right, so I'm going to try and make it right. So the seeking for substances, obviously drugs, sex, alcohol, you know, the list of material pleasures goes on and on and on. But also the seeking for liberation or enlightenment, the seeking for wholeness or the divine or God. This seeking for that which is already everything. But the seeking is like a statement, basically. It's an energetic statement that something isn't right. And what's pointed out is that that's a dream. There's actually nothing right or wrong at all. So only for that seeking energy does something feel wrong. And disappointingly for it, it's revealed that actually all there is wholeness, all there is the beloved or the divine, or, you know, whatever is appearing to happen. Being timeless is actually everything, and that everything is actually what's deeply most longed for. So whatever is appearing to happen, even the seeking, even the looking for wholeness, is wholeness. So the wholeness is just completely all-encompassingly and all-inclusively everything. So that can't be found, it can't be revealed or discovered really, because it doesn't reveal itself to itself, it just is everything. And only when this apparent energy of feeling separate apparently collapses, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that whatever I was apparently doing, whatever I thought I was doing in life, wherever I thought I was going, is actually, there's nowhere to go. There's no destination. There's no direction. There's no limitation really at all. So this is simply an exposure that everything is what's longed for. Anything and everything that's happening is wholeness, unconditionally so. Not lined up with the preferences of an individual, because that would be conditioned. So all there is wholeness, basically, and this is an exploration of that, a sharing of that, but there is no agenda or desire to change, fix or solve anything, because wholeness, being boundless and free, does not need to be changed or fixed. It already is complete.
Hello, Alexis.
Hey.
So frustrating because it feels like when there's an opening, then, you know, there's it's overwhelming. So there's almost like not necessarily a pushing it away, but there's wanting to somehow stabilize or running away in a strange way. And the moment that opening is not there, then I'm immediately grasping for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I had this really weird thing this morning. Like, I had all this pressure up here, and my whole vision, I couldn't drive, because it just, like, everything was like flipping back to like being two-dimensional and not, and it was just like flipping, but it became so fast at one point that I couldn't even see anything. It's so crazy. I mean, I'm all right with it, whatever. I got no choice anyway. But what was your, this hit you like a Mack truck, so you didn't really have a long of a period of meaning and being, or that was going on before, you think, while you were seeking, or how? If you don't know about it, that's okay. But I was actually thinking about it the other day. What was it like for you? You can speak.
Why do you want yours to speed up?
Yes. 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 And obviously not. Also.
Well, it's perfect, isn't it? You know, it's perfect. I mean, to the individual, nothing at all seems to be perfect.
No, of course not. Nothing ever is.
But, I mean, this meaning and being, I know it's not a great answer because it gets said a lot, but it never really happened, and it's timeless, and there can never be a point in which it was revealed that there was no me, and that there was a point where there was a beginning of a recognition of the... So it's like, it's time time just simply fails to elaborate on that. There's no way of putting it into a timeline, really. I mean, it might have been said in previous meetings, I'm not sure, but as this apparent, energetic whatever seemingly happened, memories appeared of a so-called past where it's like glimpses, this record glimpses that apparently happened before one had even discovered non-duality or even Buddhism for that matter. I mean, there was a time in which me and my brother got into a fight, not a violent sort of physical fight, but nearly. And back then, this was drinking heavily, and yeah, there was this moment, this apparent moment where there was a total absence of anything at all. There was no sense of anything. There was certainly no sense of person or individuality. There was it was a blacking out, but this body was still functioning. It got so angry with the brother. It left me behind. It left the me behind. And I just thought, looking back, well, I mean, at the time I just thought it was just because the body was inebriated, it was drunk and all this and that. But actually, years and years later, like looking back, it's like that was a bloody glimpse, because there was no one. There was absolutely no one. So like glimpses, I mean, I think that everybody has glimpses. I don't care how apparently contracted the so-called body is or whatever. I mean, every night, every time the body goes to sleep, there's no separation during deep dreamless sleep. And all the years of yoga and Buddhism and stuff seem to help calm the nervous system and stuff, but frustratingly for that, separation energy had no effect, really, no real effect on the contracted energy. And after years of intense seeking materially and apparently, so-called spiritually, it was only until discovering Tony that things apparently really started to change. But it has to be said apparently, obviously, because it's like there's nothing that's actually really changed. Everything has changed.
Right.
Nothing has changed at all.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And that was only last year.
I know, that's what I mean. So for you, once you encounter this message, it's like a tornado in a way or something.
Yeah, I mean, it is, again, another common non-duality disclaimer. It is a story, but I think this body was just ready for it, like, without meaning to sound like it was predestined or any of that nonsense, but I think it was just, the body was just ready. It was just,
no, I understand that.
There was a total neurosis, and it was so sort of self-important as well. When the seeking was apparently going on, it was so like self-important, like this is really important, like I'm really important, and so my enlightenment is going to be really important. And I just
well, whatever I
can't
want
help
is going to be important, whether it's enlightenment or...
Exactly. I can't help but laugh at it now. It's just, I think it's just so laughable.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, subtly or grossly, this contracted energy, I would suggest it doesn't like itself. It just seems to be agitated, and it seems out of this agitation of energy being contracted, it just doesn't seem to like itself. and so it does anything it can to try and escape from itself, or to try and inflate itself, or whatever, and it seems to live on this sort of energy of feeling like there's some sort of existential predicament that needs to be figured out, and it just isn't. Does apparent peace have any relevance to this message at all? Yes and no. Yes and no. And probably more so no, because peace seems to be a state. I mean, the way in which peace gets, talked about, it's usually a state, a fleeting state, because all states are fleeting. But, as though someone could apparently, again, stories, but as though one could look at two bodies and see one that, has this contracted energy running around, and this other body that has no seeking energy at all. There may be a correlation, but there's no rules. I mean, some bodies are just chaotic, and there would be no telling whether the contracted energy falls away, that body would become more peaceful, But death is the death of the body the death of the energy is the death of the seeking and the resistance. This is why there's a yes and no, because the resistance is incredibly unpeaceful to itself, not to anyone or anything else, but to itself. But pain and things still happen, anger and things can still happen if that's the conditioning of the character. And there are many apparent yogis and Buddhists and other practitioners of different traditions who seem to be all very peaceful and quite content with the experience of life, yet still totally seeking. So. And there's nothing right or wrong with any of that. As Tony says, they are so together it's painful. Yes. There does seem, in contrast to a non-existent past, there seems to be an intensity. An intensity. Like everything is just so fully itself and alive, because there's nothing stepping in the way. There's no distance. There's just. That's why I sort of frequently say it's raw and it's organic, because it's so immediate. It's so sort of full on and alive. There's no distance between anything.
Yeah, I was describing it to somebody, and what it was like, when everything was just immediate. It was so raw. That was the right word. And I said to them, it's almost like that feeling when you watch a documentary on like a Serengeti or something. It has this raw, wild feel to it. Well, it was like that here. It was something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no filter, no distance.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Hi, Alexis.
Hello.
I guess I don't know if this is a question, but just my experience of as being an individual feels very much like a kind of, feeling that moment to moment. There's like a constant grasping of wanting for something solid or secure, and yet there never is anything, and so it's constantly like a kind of a swimming or a constant grasping for something which isn't really there. And and it's quite painful, especially the passing of time. We're looking, sometimes when there's nothing to distract, then the passing of time becomes very slow and painful. I don't almost like the state of being is just just painful. And yet, so watching you or others, there does feel like an energy, some kind of resonance. There's something inside that resonates, and there's a physical feeling, or a feeling is felt of something which is resonating, and I feel like it's kind of helpful to just pay attention to that rather than think too much.
Well, you're describing perfectly the seeking energy. The wanting security, solidity, substantiality, and all of that would seemingly perpetuate the seeking separation energy, because it wants to feel secure. There's a want and a need to feel secure, safe, solidified, substantial, and all the rest of it. And so the way in which it tends to unfold is seeking. So looking for this, looking for that, because an object that I'm looking for seems to affirm that the subject is real. So there's a distance, there's a constant distance, and so again, perfect. It needs something to happen. So when there's a sort of a dullness or boredom, it needs something to happen. Oh gosh, this apparent moment is so dull right now. I need something to happen. I'd better make something happen. And then the resonance in an apparent meeting like this, an energy that sort of shimmers or something, the body feeling something apparently happening, and the contracted energy not really knowing or understanding what that is, because that is beyond the apparent illusory realm of understanding and knowledge. It wants it. So now the resonance is the object for the subject. So if I feel the resonance, then I'll get closer to liberation. But the resonance is actually the death of the individual that's going after it. So it feels like if it pays attention or gets really aware of the so-called resonance, whether that's physiological or psychological or whatever, if it feels like it pays attention to that is another story that is subtly perpetuating this seeking energy. And so what it does with that perhaps is try and resist thinking, because that would be a distraction. So it's caught in this. it's utterly hopeless. I mean, thinking happens or thinking doesn't happen, it doesn't matter either way. Yeah. But somehow or other, there's this sort of intuition that's beyond the level of a conceptual mind. This sort of intuition, and that is out of anyone's control, because there isn't anyone in control already. Yeah. So there is no right or wrong way or anything, and the intuition, it's like that intuition apparently becomes more palpable in a meeting where there's nothing on offer. I would suggest that's why the resonance is seeming to happen. It's because it's came to something or somewhere where it's so obvious that it's not going to get anything. And it's almost like wherever else it's going, you know, it's usually getting something, it's usually obtaining something, and there's so obviously nothing to get from this, and somehow or other that allows for a resonance, seemingly, for some.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi Alexis, when the I was seen to have never existed, did fear rise in the body? So, not to be pedantic, but the I was never seen to have never existed. The I is the one that's busy doing the seeing, apparently. Butchering that word. But yeah, the I is never seen to be an illusion. It's never seen to have not existed. What seems to happen is the I is apparently collapsing, although there's no substance to it at all. So the collapse is just as illusory as the thing that's apparently collapsing. But yeah, fear can arise. Fear can certainly seem to appear. You know, I mean, for some bodies, again, it's a generalization, but for some bodies, there can be not only an apparent dance of meing and being, absence and presence, but there can be a dance of basking, resonance, and disorientation. This can evoke a tremendous amount of disorientation for the psychophysical organism, because it's losing a simulation of a center, a position that feels fixed and real in the body. And when that center is apparently collapsing, there's no space anymore, there's no spatial element, so that can be quite relaxing, calming, energetic, but it can also be felt as tremendously like disorientating, almost like symptoms similar to vertigo or something, you know. It doesn't happen for everybody, but it's just some interesting things that can seem to happen. You know, it can feel very expansive, can feel, and then contracted and tight. And yeah, fear and anxiety, pain and pleasure, all sorts of things can appear, seem to appear. Isn't the apparent death of me the death of the fear related to it? And when you say there is no space, is there only space? Yeah, so the fear that seems to revolve around the separation energy dies completely. You know, the whole sort of existential fear of being a someone with all of the me related fear, the fear about my life, and all of this felt sense of having autonomy and worrying about that dies, because there's no autonomy, there's no, but fear can still appear for a body. If there's if you're crossing the road or whatever and a car comes at you, the body is going to probably switch on. So the fight and flight system doesn't collapse. The apparent fight and flight response, that kind of fear, it can appear, of course. But it's nothing. It's actually nothing. Just fearing. And when you say there is no space, is there only space? No, there's just no space. There's no space being duality. Space is here and there. There's no here and there. There's no sense of here and there outside of the artificial reality. Again, that's another reason why this word immediacy is liked, because it's like There's just no distance. There's no here, there, or anything. There's no anywhere. There's just immediacy. It's the only word that seems to elaborate on that, but it doesn't. No word would ever describe that. That's totally beyond conceptualization or comprehension. And trying to understand that conceptually will just seem to aggravate and keep this energy going.
History seems to be a good one to get yourself locked into this sort of existence. History. I mean, history.
Yes. So time being another...
Time, space, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's just really good about that time, space, continuum, whatever. Where's this going into that idea? It's not, you can do that, is it?
Yeah, so time is his story, yes, or her story.
Yeah, not being sexist, just saying history, which is obviously...
History being... It's a story, and there is no history, there's no real time.
So, a story. How does our contracted energy differ from an animal's contracted energy?
The animals do not seem... They do not appear to have any contracted energy at all. No. They don't go to churches or prostrate to, rupas or figurines, or they don't like to
communicate though.
Well, yeah, communication is totally natural and utterly not dependent on separation at all.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's just communication appearing to happen between animals and nature and whatever else. Yeah. Apparently trees communicate. There's no... Yeah. The contracted energy in the story would like to believe that it's responsible for communication and connection and all this and that, but it's totally redundant. It's totally unnecessary. Yeah. It's not needed for anything. No disrespect, but to the energy of separation. But it's totally useless. It serves no purpose whatsoever. No center, no me, no space, no time, no fear is all the same. So the center, the sense of space are the same, and time, being a real construct, only exists in that simulation. But fear is not dependent on contracted energy. The body still can feel fear. As an apparent thing for the body to survive. If it didn't fear anything, it would probably just cross the road or, get motored, or, if someone breaks into the house, it's the sort of the primal fear of the body, the nervous system feeling under threat, that is not dependent on the contracted energy at all. What can seem to happen for many is an inflammation of fear when there's like this sense of agitation, because it feels like very on edge, and so even like just someone looking at you in a funny way can alert the nervous system, like in the same way a tiger coming round the corner. So fear is not dependent on the contracted energy, but the contracted energy can seem to apparently have, seeking and all of this and that, and how I feel and think about myself. When I first heard this message, the me took it on as a quality of itself. Now there is new conditioning about such things as there is no one to be in relationship with. The irony. Yeah, so that happens. That can happen. When someone first comes across this, it could just be thought of as another teaching or another practice, another thing that I can prescribe to make my life better, and for some it just becomes more and more obvious that that's not the way it is at all. Non-duality being not two, this cannot possibly be objectified. Trying to objectify non-duality is, well, it's ironic. That's ironic, yeah. Yeah, no relating. Do you think there is such a thing as apparent karma? So, in the story of me, yes, a belief was held that karma is real, and that cause and effect is absolutely real, and that if I behave in this way and that way, then that will affect a future life or a mental state or whatever. This has completely collapsed. I mean, when it becomes more and more abundantly obvious that there's absolutely no control whatsoever, this whole sort of notion of karma just completely falls apart. So does consistency and continuity. The idea that if you behave in this way or that way you'll get closer or further away from liberation is like, that's the root of the story of me, and where this notion of karma seems to come from. It's based on the idea that liberation can be moved towards or away from. That would be conditioned liberation, which is a contradiction of terms. Liberation is all there is because it's unconditional. It's everything.
So Alexis, I'm probably going to make a fool of myself. I'm trying to understand these. It feels like there are kind of like two worlds, or two. There's the natural reality, and then there's this me reality. And there are all these books and everything written about this me reality, and you were just talking about karma.
Mm.
So just, and then, attached to that, there's like a notion of justice, and I work in the justice arena. And so I'm just trying to understand, so karma, does it exist in any sense, or does justice exist, or is justice all just an appearance? And
it's all appearing, and, if someone goes out and apparently steals a car, there was no one choosing to steal the car, and there was no one choosing to slam the gavel and send that person away for 10 years. It's all apparently what's appearing to happen. There's no choice, volition, control, or free will, but shit still happens, apparently. So one way in which the me energy apparently doesn't quite get that is because it thinks, well, if I try and apply that, then I'll just end up in prison or something. But it can't be applied. It can never be. There's nothing to apply, and there's no one to apply. It's just what's appearing to happen. So in the me dream, it feels like it's in control, and so usually in a society, an apparent society, it feels it ought to behave in the ways in which are deemed socially acceptable, and that is all sort of a reinforcing story of being an individual who is trying to navigate life in a skillful way or an ethical way or whatever. But this is all the story of being in control. When this whole story collapses and the energy collapses and the sense of autonomy collapses, everything just goes on. For most bodies it seems to just go on almost the same. A little bit less neurotic perhaps for some, but the conditioning and the preferences tend to stick around a little bit. I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah, I suppose I'm also thinking, like, you know, because I guess I'm talking about the me world, and you know, but you know, when you kind of appeal to people to, you know, a lot of the harm seems to be caused by, you know, a kind of this idea that we're kind of separate and some people are better than others, and we have all these concepts, and it's like a way to appeal against that is to say, well, we have like a shared humanity, you know, and it's our shared humanity, which is like, why would you want to harm someone, you know, when you're connected, we're essentially all connected and all the same. Yeah, but how that kind of fits in with...
Yeah, I mean, violence and things is... This is quite sad news for the me energy, but violence and things like that does not depend on the contracted energy necessarily, because you know it happens just as much. Well, maybe not just as much, maybe not to the point of atomic bombs and stuff, but it happens plenty in the wild and nature, you know. So it's not utterly... Violence is not necessarily utterly dependent on the contracted energy. And if it believed that, that would just be another story it could use to try and... Do you see what I mean? It's like there is no absolute positive correlation. Yeah. So it is chaos, you know, that it's an exploration of chaos, really. And chaos appears to order, apparently. £10,000 for GTA. Yeah, it must have been a very expensive car. It was just a number that came out for some reason. Yeah, it was a bit much, wasn't it? If there is no nothing, who is sitting in front of the screen answering our questions? What is the laptop that is used to post this question? And who is the confused questioner? Oh, brilliant. Yeah, the easy answer is nothing. So nothing is sitting answering questions, nothing is laptopping, and nothing is questioning. Obviously that's probably almost certainly not going to be a satisfying answer. But yeah, this is just chaotic free flow. It's all what's madly, chaotically appearing to happen, and it might seem somewhat ordered. But there just is no one. There is no real individuality, and this is simply an exposure that there's no real individuality. Separation, as in subject and object, is a dream. It's an illusion, and that seems to appear as a contracted energy in a body. But everything is empty. Everything is empty and full. It's nothing and everything. Me could never see that. Me could never know that. Might seem to know it intellectually. That's got nothing to do with this. The me, which is the ego that cannot understand that. But how about the laptop? Does it exist? It only exists to the me, in a separate reality. The sense of existing as in sticking out, being an object. Nothing really exists. There is no real existence. There is no real reality. You could call the me the ego if you want. This doesn't tend to use the word ego because that all gets a bit clunky and misleading, because different people have different ideas as to what the word ego means. So we could get lost in a whirlpool of concepts of ego. But yeah, the me can't seem to understand anything not existing, because it is existence. Like the reality of existence is me and you, subject object, inside outside. It's two-ness, it's duality. What is being exposed, not necessarily, well, perhaps intellectually and conceptually to some extent, although that doesn't really matter. But what's being exposed and explored is that everything is empty and full. It's nothing and everything. People say that doesn't make sense. Absolutely, of course it doesn't make sense. It's a paradox. So the internet, which is the network that connects us, does not exist either. There is no existence. The existence is the illusion. The existence in the sense of everything being objectified and real. There is just what appears. So the internet appears, laptop appears, bodies appear, speaking appears, listening appears, but it's all appearing, it's actually nothing appearing. As laptop, internet, voice, so on. Does the appearance happen? Guess what the next word's going to be? Anyone know? It's been said quite a few times now. The appearance apparently happens.
Right, so do you remember that little kid that was on like a YouTube video like about 10 years ago or something? You Matt. Like a guy, like little kid like talking at school, he's like, apparently I think he's like,
No.
oh mate, it was so funny when he's talking about going to school trips, he's like, yeah, apparently, oh funny man.
Maybe that
He's all
kid,
apparently, yeah.
maybe that kid was
Oh, he was, yeah, little something kid.
was it Tony Parsons?
Yeah, he fucking there, yeah. Apparently, a road guy.
Oh.
It's a funny thing, man.
Well, we're going to leave it there. Yeah. But thank you all for engagement and the smiles and the faces and the laughter and the questions and everything else. It's been good fun. Thank you all. Much love.